Moving to our other loan products, I mentioned on the previous call about our cautious approach to the unsecured portion of our book. And now it's almost 5 months since the moratorium was done away with, and looking at the collection performance and overall sentiment, and since we have not seen undue stress on the personal loan book, we have increased our presence in this segment in Q3. Pre-owned two-wheeler loans, which we have introduced about a year ago, are gaining traction, and we have more than doubled our disbursement over the quarter. And we think that this promises to be a niche product, and we can develop it to our advantage. New products, Q3 saw us introduce micro business loans, that is business loans up to 1 lakh, and we hope to build this book going forward. On the performance metrics, AUM showed a growth of 3.7% over last quarter. For the financial year so far, it is at a minus 1.85%. Our loan yields continue to be strong at over 20%, and our NIMs at 13% was the highest in 8 quarters. OPEX was higher by 12.4% on a sequential basis, which was on expected lines of the disbursements. Basically, during the festival season, high disbursement and the promotional expenses. And also the dealer payouts because of the high two-wheeler disbursements. Credit cost moderated to 2.5%, which showcases the steadily improving collection efficiency. Stage 3 gross delinquencies also continued to decline and were at 6.46%. This is 205 bits lower than last year. Stage 3 provision coverage ratio was steady at almost 53%. COVID-related provisioning stood at 592 crores as at end of December. Had we adopted the forbearance allowed by the Supreme Court order of September 2020, permitting standstill of NPAs, our gross stage 3 would have been 4.9%, 59% instead of 6.46%. Cost to income ratio is under control, and which is below 40%. Post-tax return on assets strengthened to 3.62%, and ROE improved to 14.39%. A strong CRAR of 29.57% and leveraging levels of below 3 would serve us well in raising debt going forward. Our resource raising was particularly strong. We raised 4,556 crores of incremental funds with an weighted average tenor of 36 months. What is to be noted is the tenor of the debt. We have pushed the fresh raise of debt towards a higher tenor. Cost of moderated further to 9.24%. Our liquidity buffer is at 2,670 crores. And our retail deposit base continues to be steady. A little over 4% of our fixed deposits are now raised through purely online, which has been introduced sometime around August, the online fixed deposit program, and it's gaining good traction. On the restructuring of loans permitted by RBI, I had mentioned on the last earnings call that Shriram City does not expect to have to restructure too much of our loan book, and that the amount could be a maximum of 100 to 150 crores, which will be less than 1% of our book. In the earlier guidance, we have received approximately about 150 crores worth of proposals for restructuring, which we have approved, but not restructured as yet. We have done about for 20 crores as of this quarter. Rest of it will be done going forward. The other we expect probably to, and though we have approved about 150 crores of proposals, we expect that this could shrink to about 120, 130 crores going forward. The other recommendation by the regulator concerning ECGLS also did not amount to much for Shriram City. We have disbursed about 65.5 crores worth of ECLGS loans till today. We had positive news on the credit rating front. During the quarter, India Ratings took Shriram City off the rating watch negative status and also reaffirmed our credit ratings at AA stable. ICRA also has reaffirmed at AA stable for long-term debt and the fixed deposits at AA plus. Our subsidiary Shriram Housing continues to post strong numbers as a repeat of their last quarter's performance. Shriram Housing registered their highest ever loan disbursements in Q3, which grew at 54.1% over last year and 15.1% over the last quarter. Their AUM has crossed 3,000 crores and has grown 49% year-on-year and 13%, close to 13% quarter-on-quarter. Shriram Housing has registered a 70% raise in AUM since March 19. A commendable performance given the frequent headwinds affecting the last 2 years. They achieved a PAT growth of 18.2% year-on-year and 35.7% QOQ, resulting from a healthy increase in net interest income and steady state OPEX. The PAT growth is despite a higher level of provisioning. Cost to income fell below 40% in the quarter. Shriram Housing has adopted the Supreme Court forbearance on the status quo of NPAs and reported GNPAs of 1.71% and NNPAs of 1.22%. Without this forbearance, the GNPA and NNPA figures would have been 2.4% instead of 1.71, 1.91 instead of 1.22. Shriram Housing has an adequate fund balance of about 678 crores. They have also, under the restructuring scheme, has restructured about 50 crores of, they've received proposals for up to about 50 crores of loans to be restructured, but we expect this to consolidate about 40 crores. With this, we open the floor for questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on your touchtone phone now. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and two. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. While the question queue assembles, to ask a question, participants may press star followed by one on your touchtone phone now. We have a first question from the line of Vivek Ramakrishnan from DSP Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Hello. Hi, sir. My congrats on a good performance. This is on asset quality. Is it this dichotomy between people saying there are job losses and salary cuts, especially for the lower segment, and the asset quality improvement which we see sequentially are at odds with each other? Could you explain in terms of your segment why it is improvement, and it's been a very good improvement? Thank you.
Thanks. That's a good question to ask. Let me reiterate. On the SME front, my major segment of customers are traders and service industries, where they'll come back very quickly to normalcy and functioning. We have a minimal exposure to manufacturing sector, which is about between 6 to 7%. So I think that's one of the reasons why we continue to do well. Even on the two-wheeler portfolio, about 70% plus of our two-wheeler customers are small businessmen and self-employed professionals. By professionals, I mean your typical plumber, electrician, these kind of professions. Small businessmen, your vegetable, milk, fruit vendors, these kind of customers. So salaried, we have not much of an exposure to salaried. Since our business territories are mostly tier 2, tier 3, that is semi-urban and rural areas. So I think this is what probably has one way I would say insulated us majorly from the effects of COVID.
Excellent, sir. Thank you very much. This is just difficult to see the many Indias going on now, and congrats on a good quarter performance.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have next question from the line of Prashant Sridhar from SBI Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
So if you can give us some idea about collection efficiencies on billing against these segments.
See, our collection efficiency for the quarter is around 98%. Normal pre-COVID level is 96-97.
So 98% would be on billing, or?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Let me modify this. Chandru, you have that number on billing?
Yeah, the TBC, in fact, the TBC collection includes everything. Collection includes even for, so collection includes
right.
all collections. And the TBC will be the monthly for the month.
Correct. So you have the number. What is, I think.
You want the figures? If the TBC is 2,000, almost 2,000, I'll give the correct figure, right?
No.
So monthly collection is 2,040. We have collected close to around 2,000 crores. For a quarter is almost 6,200 crores. We have collected close to 6,130 crores.
Okay. Chandru?
Yeah. For the quarter is 6,200 crores. We have collected close to 6,100 crores.
Correct, Chandru. What he is asking is the number of billing against collection. If you have a billing of 100.
Billing against collection will be around close to around 77-78%. For the month.
Sure. That's helpful, sir. How would it look across segments? Something like SME versus personal loan or two-wheeler?
Your voice is breaking. Can you understand your voice?
No. What he is asking is how does it look across the products?
No, okay. Across the product is, in fact, all the product is between 94. In fact, if you see two-wheeler is 95, EF is 97, PL is 100, Pre-owned also is close to 100, SL is 99. So all the products, and gold is of course 100%.
So it's basically, other than two-wheeler is slightly lower compared to other products, but I think it's more or less we are able to achieve a number that is almost, I mean, there is a 1-2% plus or minus in each product.
Understood. And so the second question is, if you can give us some idea of these disbursements that you've done, how much will be something to stressed accounts or something that would hit your internal limits as stress or 0+ in previous quarters?
No, see, this is very, whatever I've put out two statements. One is on the amount that we have done for restructured accounts and the ECGLS. Other than that, no loan will be given to a customer who is under stress. And if you give it, you need to put it under restructure, or you need to create a provision for a stressed asset if you're still lending on it. Stressed part of such portfolio, right? So the current disbursements, no top-ups. Top-ups % of the current disbursement. It's all loans to customers where they have completed a loan. So about 30% of the disbursement has gone to my existing customer who has already completed a loan. Rest of it is to new customers.
Got it. That's helpful, sir. I'll come back in the queue. Thank you so much.
Thank you. A reminder to participants, to ask a question, please press star followed by 1 on your touchtone phone now. We have next question from the line of Sanket Chheda from B&K Securities. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir, and congrats on a pretty good set of numbers on growth as well as asset quality. My question was, sir, what would be our stock of stage 2 assets currently, and if you can just provide how it was last quarter, just to get a sense how it has moved up or moved down.
Yeah.
Chandru, you want to take it?
In fact, last year at the same time, the stage 2 was close to 13%. And after the moratorium, I think from March it was 5%. Q1 it was 5%. Q2 was 5%. This quarter it has moved to 7%. Stage 2.
Okay. Okay. And so out of this 7%, since we didn't have any delinquencies in this quarter and we have not grown our book since last 6 quarters apart from this quarter, I believe that all the NRN pain was already. See any meaningful stress coming out of this stage 2 assets over the next quarter also?
Yeah, basically the point here is stage even if it moves to 31 so in fact stage 2 is between 31 to 90. Basically we have to because we consistently because so we expect to be around this level or plus or minus 1 or 2%. We have to wait for another 1 or 2%. But so far I think we are in control because pre-COVID level we are generally in the 10 to 13% range. Compared to pre-COVID level we are still lower.
Okay, okay. And just one question, out of this 7%, as you said, 30 to 90 days, so how much would be in 30 to 60 day bucket and how much would be 60 to 90 day bucket if that is available?
Yeah, 30 to 60 bucket will be around 4% and 60 to 90 will be around 3%.
Okay, okay. And sir, if we see the ECL provisioning on overall book, so our ECL provisioning is probably one of the highest in the NBFC space at about 8%, 8.5%. So even if there were some delinquencies that may come in the coming quarters, we are fairly provided in terms of say provisioning on stage 3 asset is concerned or even the provisioning on the standard asset are concerned. Is that the right assumption to make going forward?
Yeah, actually we have made the COVID provisioning has been taken into account the collection efficiencies and the gross NPA stage 3 is coming down, looking to stage 2 and also even stage 1 we are looking into 0 and 1 to 30 and we have the internal stress testing which shows that we are in the right direction. So as of now we are very comfortable with what the provision is. We'll take into account next 6 to 8 quarters how the book will behave and based on some stress test the provision is made.
Okay, sir. And the last question is, sir, we are talking about a small business loan maybe picking up from Q4. So maybe similar growth would be there. By 22, do we foresee an AUM growth of mid-teens? Probably are we targeting that number?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Okay, sir. That was all from me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have next question from the line of Abhijit Dwara from Sundaram Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Thanks for taking my question. So congrats on a good set of numbers. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. First one is you said the stage 3 numbers which you have given is without benefiting from Supreme Court order, right? As in you have recognized all the GNPS.
Yeah, correct.
Had you utilized the benefit, it would have been lower, right? Stage 3 would have been lower. Right. Okay. So second, I wanted to check what is your write-off policy, sir, after a loan becomes NPA if the recovery is taking time? In how many days or months do you write off the loan? Normally?
Yeah, basically we have a board-approved write-off policy, which there are multiple methods by which we take into account. First, we look into the cases where it is above 90 days, and we also discuss with the business teams and the branches, divisions, and other people to see which can become delinquent on the areas. So we go by account, agreement by agreement, which the probability of the default is higher. So that is why that is the basis on which we write off. So we have a detailed policy. I think which if you want, we can also share with you.
Okay. What was the write-off quantum, sir, in the current quarter, Q3?
We have this quarter we have 209 crores of write-off.
Okay.
So
sure, sir.
In terms of percentage, it will be close to around close to 2.8 to 2.9%.
Sure. So just one last question, sir. This was even asked earlier. Credit cost, sort of guidance or expectation for Q4 and FY22. Of course, stress is coming down by a good amount. Do you think credit cost will start normalizing in Q4 itself, or it will take, let us say, 1-2 quarters more? What is the internal expectation?
Credit cost, in fact, this quarter is 2.5%. In fact, even if you look into last year, even previous years, generally we do very well during this Q3 compared to other quarters. So we generally budget between 2.8 to 3% is general budget we do for the full year. And going forward, we feel that the credit cost will be between 2.5 to 3% range. It may, with quarter and quarter, it can be 15-20 basis points up and down, but we expect somewhere to be around 2.7 to 2.8 going forward.
Okay. Last question, sir, from my side. Cost of incremental borrowing. What are the benefits you are seeing right now? And also, based on your borrowing program, any expectations you have for cost of borrowing? How much can it come down by in next 6 months or 12 months?
Okay. In fact, if you see our cost of borrowing for the last 1 year, I think it is steadily coming down. In fact, last year was 9.6%. Then it last Q1 was 9.59, Q2 was 9.56. This quarter it has come down to 9.24. In fact, this quarter we have brought down 31 basis points. And with the mix, we have 2-3 strategies on the thing. One thing we are very clear. Even this quarter, we have mobilized 4,500 crores, which is all 3-year money. Going forward, also the strategy for the company is to go long-term borrowings rather than we will continue to have only long-term borrowings in the books. And this 9.24, which this quarter we expect to still come down by this quarter, we expect to be 5-10 basis points down. And for next financial year, we expect the cost of borrowing to be somewhere between 9 to 9.1.
Andrew, I think you should also mention the fact that the fresh borrowing is at 8.8%.
Yeah. Fresh borrowing, in fact, but fresh borrowing is coming down. But because since all the earlier books is all fixed, so it will take some time. It will take some time for the older book to go out. But we expect to be somewhere between 9 to 9.1% for the next financial year.
This lower cost of borrowing, will it be retail expansion or will it be passed on to the customers through lower yields?
Generally, we don't pass on, so we expect growth. In fact, we expect the growth to go up next year. So, though cost of borrowing will come down steadily, but because the capital...
Chandru, no, but see, one thing is on the two-wheeler front and all, we have actually passed on some of the benefits there. So...
But some of the products like PL, we have started doing high-yielding products also. So there is some balance here in the high-yielding products. Like this quarter it has gone up because personal loan and pre-owned two-wheelers. So on a overall as a book, like individual products and individual fees we may do here and there. But overall we expect the yield to be around 20%.
Okay, fine, sir. I'll get back with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. A reminder to participants, if you wish to ask a question, please press star followed by 1 on your touchtone phone now. We have next question from the line of Ankur Jain from Prayas Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, sir. Thanks for taking my question. You have mentioned about the disbursements which have gone up in the personal loan segment. So I wanted to ask about the gross NPA level in that segment. They continue to be elevated. So what are your thoughts on them going forward?
See, the incremental book gross NPAs have come down substantially. That is reason being we have moved away from the market personal loan to purely cross-sell customers.
Okay.
So it will come down steadily in the next 3-4 quarters. The old book gets retired and the new book starts. The new book's portion of the business starts growing. It will come down steadily.
Even during this, there is a 20 basis point dip in the personal loan. In fact, it was 10.89 last quarter. It was 10.69. Even if you see the last 1 year, the Q3 last year was 10.99. Now it is 10.69. In fact, even quarter on quarter, year on year, I think there is the personal loan percentage is coming down, gross NPA.
Right. So what is the NPA level that you are experiencing in the new book?
The new book is less than 50% of what you see on the overall now.
So let's say 5 or 6%, between 5 to 6%.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Sir, I have another question on the housing finance business, a couple of them. So, what we are experiencing that a lot of companies, including Shriram Housing Finance, which are catering to the self-employed segment and the geographies of tier 2, tier 3 and semi-urban geographies. So all these companies are experiencing very high growth. Now, part of the reason could be due to the low base AUM that these companies have. So my question was, what are the underlying economic conditions in that segment and what is causing such high growth and is it sustainable?
No, I think probably if you are looking at the high growth, it could be a factor of the low base.
Right.
Basically, the factor of a low base. And the other thing also that, as you are all aware, that for the last 2 years, we have a leadership change at Housing Finance. We have created a very, I would say, a strong and dynamic team there, and that team probably took a year for them to consolidate and then move from there. So they are now working with the group, basically utilizing the group strength and expanding. So probably they will continue to grow at this pace for at least another couple of 2 to 3 years, and then and then the growth may not be in this high number.
Right. Yeah, thanks. Sir, my question was more on the macroeconomic conditions, in the geographies and the segment Shriram Housing Finance caters.
Okay. So, basically, if you look at Shriram Housing Finance, they are focused on south, that is Tamil Nadu, AP, Karnataka in south. Then you have Maharashtra, Gujarat, Rajasthan, and Delhi. So these are the 7 major geographies that they are operating. So all the 7 geographies are performing well, even on the macro economic conditions side also have the most potential.
Right.
So I think you can get a sense of it since they're operating only in the 7 states right now, which are a very large market for the housing finance, and where we also have the group also has a large strength.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, a follow-up question on that. I mean, you mentioned about the leadership change which happened in Shriram Housing Finance. The team consolidated the process. So I just wanted to know what processes has the team changed to ensure that the underwriting is prudent, and are you confident that those processes are baked in now and the business has turned around?
Yeah, I can give you one example. Right from whatever loans disbursed 2019 till today, I think they have 2 accounts which are 90 DPD.
Okay.
So I think which is about close to 2,000 crores of AUM. So does that answer on the strength of the underwriting?
Yeah, quantitatively you have provided the figures that gives confidence, but I just wanted to understand what this team is doing different than the earlier team, maybe a couple of 2 or 3 points.
Yeah, right. I think see, we have an hour in this call for me to explain, but if you really want to meet the team and talk to them, I would be glad to arrange a meet with the team or a call with the team so that you can discuss with.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'll definitely take this opportunity and I'll connect with Mr. Jay.
I would request you to contact Jay. He will organize an interaction with the team for you.
Right. And just the last question. In an interview, you mentioned the plans to raise around 300 to 400 crore rupees in the Shriram Housing Finance for, So is it to be raised? First of all, is it on track? And secondly, I mean, would you like to raise it from the private investors or are there plans to, tap the primary market?
No, I would, no primary market. Definitely no primary market. It is a toss-up between whether SCUF should invest or we should invite an external investor. We are still debating on it, not at nothing as formalized. But they would need capital down 6-7 months time.
Yeah, got it, sir. Thanks a lot. I mean, that's all from my side.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have a next question from the line of Kunal Shah from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, sir. Congratulations for a good set of numbers. So overall, maybe if we have to see in terms of where the stage 3 is settling, and given that stage 2 is also at 7 odd %, should we say that maybe in terms of the asset quality behavior has been better than the anticipated? And maybe looking into it, if we think that the situation has stabilized, how should we look at the growth in most of the segments? Because maybe it's been like 3-4 years. So is it giving us more confidence to get back into the higher growth trajectory, getting into FY22 and FY23? And which segment would ideally drive it?
I'll answer your last point first. So the segments, obviously, we will continue to focus both SME, two-wheeler. Of course, gold now, the other point is that we want to take the gold across the country in the next 12 to 18 months. We want all our branches to be able to do gold loan. So that's obviously, that's where we want to go. And as far as your NPAs are concerned, stage 3 or stage 2, I think we are at a point where we are confident that we will be able to improve further on this. We have a strong conviction that the numbers we are seeing today could be, even if you hold them where they are today, with the increased AUM, so as a percentage, we will be able to, actually the percentage will be able to improve on these numbers. So idea is that 21, 22, as somebody has asked me, and I said, yeah, we are targeting high teens growth on the AUM side. And does that answer your question, Kunal?
Yeah, sure. So that was the first question. And secondly, when we look at it in terms of collection efficiency, so I heard that maybe in terms of the billing, that was 77, 78. Was it correct? Maybe purely the collection against the billing.
You're right.
Okay.
Correct.
And overall collection efficiency we mentioned was 98%.
Yeah, for the quarter.
For the quarter, and this was 77, 78. So should we read it that coming as more of an arrears where people are coming and paying the few of the past installments? How should we read into this number? So maybe
balance majority of it is arrear customer collection.
Okay, so almost like 20% would be arrear customers.
Yeah.
Okay. And pre-COVID, what was in terms of the two-wheeler? We said like two-wheeler is lower because most of the other products are 94, 95, okay, or say 100 odd %. And given that two-wheeler, I think still is like 23, 24% of the book, then it has to be like exceptionally lower to get to this 77, 78%. So what's the collection efficiency in two-wheeler and how it was in the pre-COVID level?
See, normal two-wheeler efficiency during pre-COVID level was about 96%, which is at 94 now.
No, so this is including arrears again.
Overall. Yeah, I'm talking about the overall. This number I'll get back to you. I don't have it right now.
So when we look at billing against collections, yeah, because 94, 95 or say 100% in other products, and overall at 77, 78, then two-wheeler has to be like sub 25 odd percent, I would tend to believe, which I don't know if.
You see, two-wheeler typically, yeah, I'll give you that number, but I think two-wheeler side basically we do have a lot of these customers who come to the branches and pay money, or basically no PDP customers, non-banking customers.
Yeah.
So there is a difference between that product and rest of the products. But anyway, I'll get you that number. Jay, please make a note and get it.
Sure. I'll take it. Yeah. And lastly, in terms of.
So the collection is almost closer to the pre-COVID levels. So the collection that can be plus or minus 1%, but more or less is similar to the pre-COVID levels.
Okay, both billing again. Yeah, and one more question was on yield. So I don't know if you have passed on the benefit on the funding cost side. Definitely the portfolio mix is helping the overall yield to sustain at this level. But if you can highlight, is it like enough of pricing power and whatever cost advantage we had seen, there was not much of a need to cut rates. So compared to the decline in the cost of funds, how would we have tweaked the card rates across the product in last 2 to 3 odd quarters?
No, see, other than two-wheeler, I think rest of the products, nothing has not moved. Two-wheeler, so typically in a festival season, you tend to give some discounts to the customers, geography. So you run some schemes for customers, which normally happens in any festival quarter, and where you also pass on the some of the lower cost of funds to the segment there. So otherwise, rest of the products yields are steady. Two-wheeler has slightly come off, which in the non-festival seasons will go back to normal.
No, so I'm just trying to get that maybe whatever decline in the funding cost is there, are we absorbing it more in terms of the profits, and there is to pass it on to the customers, and that should reflect in a much better margin.
Kind of segments, yeah, Kunal, I got your point, but with the kind of segments that we are addressing today, I think we are adequately priced. There is no need to reduce the
rates as of
now.
So then margins should stay on at a much higher level.
Yeah, on top, yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. This was very helpful. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Participants who wishes to ask a question at this time, press star and 1 on your touchtone phone now. We have next question from the line of Bunty Chawla from IDBI Capital. Please go ahead. Bunty Chawla, your line is unmuted. Please go and ask your question. Yes, sir, please go ahead.
There's too much of a background noise with Mr. Chawla's line.
Thank you. As we could not get a response, move to the next question from the line of Subramanian Iyer from Morgan Stanley. Please go ahead. Mr. Iyer, please go ahead. Your question. Your line is unmuted.
Hello. Yes, sir. I had a question on the collection efficiency. So essentially, so you mentioned that 77-78% is the collections based on monthly billing, and the rest is coming from arrears. So I just wanted to understand that on average, even on a looking on a pre-COVID basis, looking during the pre-COVID period, what used to be your collections from monthly billing and what used to be your collections from arrears?
Yeah, pre-COVID level also it will be between 76 to 80%.
Okay, so it's so essentially it's a normal course that you would get at least 15-16% of collections from arrears.
It's like that, yeah.
Okay, got it. That's clear. The other question I had is on, I just wanted to confirm the stage 2 number. So I believe it's 7%, right? And what was it last quarter?
Last quarter was 5%.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on your touchtone phone now. We have next question from the line of Prashant Sridhar from SBI Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
So just one follow-up question from my side. So on one side, you're collecting almost 20% extra for the quarter from arrears accounts or past overdues. But at the same time, stage 2 is also, increasing by 2%. So, how do I sort of read both of these figures together?
No, but the point here is stage 2, in fact, the amount, because the collections, a lot of arrears collection is coming. So stage 2, 2% is a small thing, because if you see the overall book of 100%, stage 1 is almost close to around 87-88%. Stage 3 is 6%. So this, even if it moves to from 30 to 32, then it becomes stage 2. So overall collections, when you take collection percentage, it includes even arrear collection also. It can be 1 bucket, 2 bucket, or even 3 bucket. It can be overdue, all these things. So going forward, we expect the stage 2 to be around this level. Maybe it's between 7 to 9% or 10%. So
What?
it's a calculation has to be shown, because it's difficult to explain the calculation on their own.
No, I think
understood.
at the end of the day, the point here is that stage 2 may move here and there, but I think the point to note is that you have consistently been collecting from the various customers. So the customers may move a bucket and then come back, which is quite routine for this kind of segment of customers.
Okay, understood.
So ultimately, the write-offs, or the credit cost is well under control. If you look at last, 8 quarters, 10 quarters. So I think that I would request you to take look at that, and not bucket 1, 2, and then, this is basically this kind of a segment of customers. A month not coming back and paying next month is quite normal.
Perfect. Understood. No, I was just trying to compare that difference, but understood, sir. And if you could just give us the on-billing collection efficiency for the housing finance entity as well.
I'm sorry?
If you could give us the collection efficiency for the housing finance entity as well.
Housing finance entity, I'll get it sent across to you on detail. On the you're talking about stage 1, stage 2 assets, right?
No, that and the collection efficiency.
If you can hold on, probably I'll give it to you right now. Just let me have a look at it. I don't have it top of the mind, but I can give you. Give me 1 second. Yeah. 1 second. You wanted the collection efficiency, right? %97% plus on billing and over 100% on law. Subbu, you're able to hear me?
Yes, I got that. Yeah.
97% on billing, plus on billing, and over 100% on the total.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have next question from the line of Pranab Tendulkar from Rare Enterprises. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks a lot for the opportunity. The arrears and the regular payments, that proportion you mentioned is similar to pre-COVID. Am I right? So this is a normalcy.
Yeah, almost.
Correct. So whatever stage.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. So whatever is the stage 2 and stage 3 and stage 1 is almost similar to pre-COVID. Am I right in that?
Yeah, correct.
Right. So that is one. So second thing is that What is your record in each of the verticals in recovery? So if say 6% is GNPA right now, how much of that you will recover in 2-3 years? Have you done any historical analysis and fine-tuned your strategy according to that? Can you just elaborate a little bit on this? Loss given default, how is that, and recovery?
Yeah.
Basically, in fact, I'll put this process slightly different because historically we collect on the write-off, we collect from 80 to the early area write-offs. So,
okay.
So we, for example, we write off somewhere between 2.5 to 2.1%. Out of that, we are able to collect some 0.4, 0.5% on the previous year write-offs. So around 15-20% of the write-off we collect subsequent year, but it is coming available for income instead of this.
Right. Right. So the third question is that how are you measuring productivity of your manpower, and have you done any technological step changes, not incremental, but step changes in terms of hiring technical expertise or technical heads of the organization? Anything of that sort you have done?
We do have a full-fledged team there, both on the analytics side and also on process improvement side. We do have a very strong team there.
Right. And who is heading that team?
Sorry?
Who is heading that team?
A gentleman named Mr. Karthikeyan, and we do have, on the digital marketing side, we do have a digital marketing head called Mr. Unnikrishnan.
Okay. Okay. So you were saying about productivity.
Yeah. Productivity, we do have some internal standard measures, and each and every employee's productivity is measured on a monthly basis. And the incentives or their career, of course, is also linked to the productivity.
Okay.
So basically, each team leader and their team is measured on productivity on a constant basis.
Right. Right. So just I'm unaware of this. In the home portfolio, what is the split between home and LAP?
The split between home and LAP?
LAP, yeah. Loan against property and...
yeah, I'll just give me 1 second and just see it. Okay. It's out of 3,000 crores. Yeah. We have a 48%, 63% home loan.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah.
63% is home loan. You have a 4% home improvement, 29% between construction finance and LAP.
Okay.
That's about 32%. 29 plus 3, that's about 32% between construction finance and LAP.
Okay. And for construction finance, the land is the security? Or?
Yeah, basically it's projects in various stages you find that. So land is a security. And ticket sizes are, I think there have a restriction on the ticket sizes. They don't fund big one. The entire project is a security. So you have about, I think the largest ticket size you would have funded would be about 10-12 crores.
10 crores.
Yeah, 10 to 30 crores probably.
Right. Right. And what is the
10 crores is the cap. Actually, 10 crores is the cap.
Right. So is it like local small builders having very good visibility, or what is the?
Exactly. We are not with the local small builders. There are registered single tower projects.
Right. So don't you think, sir, the risk here is different? Because I understand that you understand this risk better than the investor community. So can you elaborate a little bit higher on this point, that how is risk assessed qualitatively and quantitatively in this part of the portfolio?
See, if you look at the entire listing, this is about 30% of our portfolio, which is about 1,000 crores, number one. That's actually, I'm sorry, 1 second. I think I have given you the wrong number. Construction finance is 3% of the book. 29% of the 32%, LAP is 29 and 3%.
Right. So this question becomes irrelevant then.
Yeah, it's a small portfolio, but then it is also done to, as I said, 10 crores is a cap, single tower, local reputed builders.
Right.
The project definitely needs to be under RERA.
Right. So it's the last question from my side. Average ticket size for LAP and home. That's it. And thanks a lot for your time.
I think home is about, average ticket size is about 20 lakhs.
Right.
On the home side, about 22 lakhs would be our average ticket size for home loan. And for LAP, it would be about 26, around, again, same, 25 to 26 lakhs.
Right, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have next question from the line of Vivek Ramakrishnan from DSP Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Sir, thank you again. I just wanted to circle back to the 77%, collection on billings to the entire cycle. I think a lot of the analyst questions are around that, and I know today, it's been a long call. If you could just walk us through how it happens, in the sense that, are the bulk of the customers where you collect cash from? Is it, are there check bounces? And then walk the journey, that would be very useful. If it's a bit late, we can always do it next call or separately also, sir.
We have 3 more minutes. So if you, I know that, let me put it this way. If you look at my business for the last 15 years, it's always been like this. There is nothing exceptional in this. Month after month, quarter after quarter, this is the same that happens in the segment that we fund. And see, the kind of customers that you have, most of these customers are fluctuating cash flow, so they may bounce this month, come back and pay you next month. It's a cycle that keeps happening. So even if you look at the historical data, I could obviously ask, I can also ask Jai to give you the historical data over the last 3 years, 4 years, whatever period that you want, and you would see that the pattern is the same across. So you don't, the other thing is, we do not go and put pressure on customers for this, because we know that it's not a willful default, it's just a temporary cash flow glitch, and the customer will come back and pay you. Because we've seen this even during the moratorium period also, we have seen where customers have kept coming back and paying you. They may miss a month, a couple of months, then they come back and pay you a month, and then they tell you that they don't want moratorium, we will pay you back. So this is a quite familiar territory for us.
Okay, sir. That's good, because all of us are tuned to some EMI-based things, and this, I understand how the cycle works. Is there a lot of cash collection? What percentage of your collections is now cash in terms?
Roughly about 30% of the collection happens in cash, and out of that, as of now, about close to another. It used to be about 40%, and the post-lockdown, about 10% of it has moved to digital, and the 30% happens in cash.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, and good luck. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question. I'd now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Pradeep Agrawal from Phillip Capital for closing comments. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Vikram. On behalf of Phillip Capital, I would like to thank the entire senior management team of Shriram City Union Finance and all the participants for joining us on the call today. Thank you and goodbye. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Phillip Capital India Private Limited, that concludes this conference call. Thank you for joining with us, and you may now disconnect your lines.